between the Dharma and the divine, a reflection by Aemilia Cohen. For much of my life, I found myself standing between two great rivers of thought and practice, Buddhism and Hinduism. Both speak of liberation, compassion, and the dissolution of ignorance. Yet they both approach these truths from opposite ends of the same mystery. Over time, I stopped asking which was truer and began asking how each feels from the inside. How does consciousness respond when it is directed towards emptiness? And how does it move when it opens towards divine fullness? At their roots, both traditions begin from the same realization, that our ordinary way of perceiving reality is narrow and conditioned. We suffer not because the world is cruel, but because we mistake the fleeting for the permanent, the limited for the whole. Dharma in both systems points towards living in alignment with truth through compassion, ethical integrity, and the cultivation of awareness. Both recognize karma as the web of causation that shapes experience, and both aim for a freedom that transcends it, whether you want to call it nirvana, moksha, or the end of grasping. In both, the goal is not belief, but direct knowing, an awakening that is lived, not imagined. The two diverge most clearly around the question of self. In Hinduism, liberation is a recognition that the individual soul, the Atman, is not separate from the cosmic principle, Brahman. To realize this is to see that everything, every thought, every particle is a facet of divine consciousness. Buddhism, by contrast, offers no such eternal ground. The doctrine of anatta, or no self, reveals that what we call I is actually a constellation of changing processes. Liberation is not union with the divine, but the direct seeing that there was never anyone to be bound or freed in the first place. Hinduism affirms being, whereas Buddhism dissolves it. One finds truth in unity, the other in impermanence, and yet both lead to freedom. Hinduism unfolds as a great dialogue with divinity, gods, goddesses, energies, and archetypes that embody cosmic principles. To worship Kali, Durga, Gauri, or Shakti is to engage with reality as a living, intelligent force. The world is not illusion to escape, but a sacred manifestation to enter fully. Whereas Buddhism in its early form is largely non-theistic. The Buddha is a teacher, not a deity. The goal is not communion, but clarity. Yet in later Mahayana and Vajrayana schools, the imagery of celestial Buddhas and bodhisattvas begins to resemble Hindu devotion, not as external gods, but as personified aspects of enlightened awareness. In that sense, both traditions eventually circle back to the same insight, that the sacred and the mind are inseparable. When I meditate upon the Buddha, the movement is inward and downward. It's a quieting of everything that grasps. The breath softens. The self becomes liquid. Awareness expands until there's no center, no object, no observer. Only the clear, open field of direct experience. In those moments, compassion arises naturally, not as emotion, but as a state of balance. There is peace in the absence of striving. There is the vastness of sunyata, the boundless clarity of emptiness that contains all things. But when I turn to Kali, Shakti, or even Durga, something entirely different happens. The stillness does not vanish. It vibrates. There's a pulse to it, a warmth and electricity that arises from the base of my spine, through my heart, and all the way through my crown, at the top of my head. It's not dissolution, but expansion. Not the quiet of emptiness, but the roar of creative force. Kali's presence is fierce and tender all at once. She dismantles illusion, not through negation, but through transformation. Where the Buddha empties the cup, Kali fills it until it overflows, reminding me that form itself is sacred and that chaos is part of consciousness expressing itself. Meditating upon Gauri, the radiant one, however, the movement softens. There's a gentleness, a sense of unconditional love diffused through perception. It's not about annihilation or transcendence, but about learning to see clearly through affection. Where the Buddha's path feels like clear light, Shakti's path feels like a luminous fire. Theravada Buddhism emphasizes discipline, the gradual purification of the mind through mindfulness, ethics, and insight. It's precise, austere, and profoundly honest. Mahayana expands that framework through compassion. For instance, the Bodhisattva vow to awaken not for oneself, but for all beings. And Vajrayana, often described as the accelerated path, reintroduces sacred symbols and rituals of Tantra, transforming desire, anger, and fear into vehicles of realization. Meanwhile, Hindu yoga offers parallel paths. The Jnana yogi seeks wisdom, the Karma yogi acts without attachment, and the Bhakti yogi dissolves in devotion. When I practice in a Buddhist mode, however, I experience dispassion leading into clarity. When I practice in a Hindu mode, I experience devotion leading into unity. Both dissolve ego, but one through emptiness and the other through unconditional love. The longer I walk between these traditions, the more I feel they are two hands of the same gesture, one opening while the other one receiving. Buddhism teaches how to see through illusion. Hinduism teaches how to honor it once it's seen. The Buddha reminds me that nothing lasts, and that's liberation. Kali reminds me that what arises and dissolves is still sacred, and that's love. In stillness, I become the witness. In worship, I become the dance. And perhaps enlightenment, if that word means anything at all, is simply the ability to hold both. Thank you.